Most nights the world ends quietly, not in the way people imagine, not with a headline, not with a crowd. Just lights going out in apartments you've walked past 1,000 times, a TV still talking to an empty room, a cup left on the counter like someone will be back in a minute. And you can feel it if you're awake late enough. How everything we call life is mostly just repetition, mostly just filling time with things that look responsible. If you're drawn to quiet truths and the conversations we usually avoid, subscribing lets you stay with these stories at your own pace. In the morning, you wake up and your hand reaches for the phone before your eyes fully open. It's not even curiosity anymore, it's muscle memory, thumb scrolling while your brain is still trying to assemble itself. Messages, weather, a reminder you forgot you set, someone else's life edited into brightness. Then the small negotiations start. 5 more minutes. A different shirt. The coffee that tastes like every other coffee you've ever had, but still feels necessary, like a ritual that proves you're still participating. The day begins the way days begin, not with meaning, with motion. There are keys, shoes, the familiar weight of your bag, the sound your door makes when it closes, something you could recognize in the dark. You might even have one of those locks that clicks too loudly and makes you think for half a second about safety, about the fact that you live inside walls and call it a life. Outside, people move like they're all late for the same thing. Someone jogs past with headphones in, as if outrunning a thought. Someone else stands at the crosswalk looking blankly at the red hand, the little glowing palm that tells you to wait. You wait. You always wait. And when you think about your life, when you allow yourself the luxury of that, you don't picture an ending. You picture a later. Later, I'll deal with the debt. Later, I'll call my sister. Later, I'll fix the thing I keep pretending isn't broken. Later, I'll take that trip, write that page, leave that job, apologize properly, forgive properly, stop pretending. Later is a gentle word. It doesn't scare you. Later feels like a room in your house you haven't walked into yet, but you own it. It's yours. It's waiting. Even the things that bother you, they feel permanent in a comforting way. The neighbor's barking dog, the squeak in the car when you brake, the cracked corner of your phone screen that you never fix because it still works, the way your father coughs when he laughs, the way your mother repeats stories, the way your friend always says we should do this more, and then you don't. It's all part of the set, background noise, familiar flaws in the scenery. And you start to trust it. You trust the way the grocery store is always there, bright and stocked, like the world has promised to keep refilling itself. You trust the routine of buying eggs and toothpaste and something you don't need, because the act of buying things makes you feel like you're continuing. You trust the calendar. You trust the little squares that fill up with obligations and birthdays and meetings because they make time feel owned, managed, accounted for. Sometimes you even joke about it. Time flies. Where did the year go? I can't believe it's already. You say it with a smile like it's just language, like it doesn't mean anything, like it isn't a confession. At night, you might sit on the edge of your bed with the light off, not ready to sleep, not ready to feel whatever waits when the room goes quiet. And you tell yourself, not out loud, but in that private voice you use when you're being gentle with yourself. Tomorrow I'll do better. Not even better, really. Just tomorrow I'll start. Tomorrow I'll return to myself. Tomorrow I'll catch up. And somehow, because you've been alive this long, tomorrow feels real. It feels like a possession. It feels guaranteed. That's the lie. Not a dramatic lie, not one you chose knowingly. A soft lie that forms around you the way dust forms on furniture. Slow, unnoticed, ordinary. It's the lie that life is stable enough to postpone. That the unfinished parts will stay unfinished until you decide you're ready. That the words you haven't said will still have a place to land. That the people you love will remain available. That you yourself will remain available. So you keep moving. You do the laundry. You answer emails. You pay bills or avoid them. You laugh at something you don't find that funny. You nod in meetings. You fill the day with things that prove you're busy. Busy is such an admired state. Busy means you matter. Busy means your absence would be noticed. Busy means you're needed. It doesn't mean you're awake. Sometimes you catch yourself looking at your own hands while you wash dishes, and you feel this strange distance, like you've borrowed these hands from someone else, like you're watching your life, not living it. But it passes, the water runs, the plate dries, you put it away. You forget you ever thought it. Because there's always something next. There's always a reason not to sit still long enough to hear your own life. And in the middle of all this, there are the things you avoid. The drawer you don't open because it's full of papers you don't understand. The voicemail you never listen to. The photo you don't look at too long because it makes your chest feel tight. The conversation you keep delaying because you can't control how it will end. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time. It sounds responsible. You tell yourself you're waiting until things calm down, until work is less crazy, until the kids are older, until you're less tired, until you feel more like yourself again. You don't notice that you've been saying that for years. And then there are the small, quiet dreams. Not the big ones people post online, the real ones, the ones you barely admit to yourself. Maybe you wanted to paint. Maybe you wanted to write. Maybe you wanted to live in a different city. Maybe you wanted to leave someone, or stay with someone, or become someone who doesn't apologize for taking up space. Maybe you wanted to tell the truth more often. Not to others, just to yourself. But you let those dreams sit in the corner like unopened mail. Because you think time is a storage unit. You think you can keep things there and retrieve them later. And it works for a while. It works until one day you realize you don't remember what you were waiting for, or who you were waiting to become. But even then, you don't panic. You make another plan. You promise yourself another later. Because normal life is persuasive. Normal life has receipts and routines and responsibilities. It has alarms and deadlines and groceries. It has noise. Normal life tells you, this is what living looks like. And so you keep going. You keep the lights on. You keep the body moving. You keep the calendar full. And you don't notice, most of the time, that you're spending your days like loose change. Not in one dramatic purchase. In 1,000 small transactions you never remember making. Then something small stops. Not the world. Not the sky. Not the news. Just a piece of the usual pattern. A text that doesn't get answered. A chair that stays empty. A name you expect to see pop up that doesn't. It might start as a simple thought. Haven't heard from them in a bit. You don't say it with fear. You say it like someone noticing the milk is low. Maybe you reach for your phone and scroll back, looking for the last message. Maybe it's something ordinary, a thumbs up, a joke, a busy today, talk soon. Talk soon. And then days pass the way days pass, without announcement. At some point, you notice the silence has weight. It isn't loud. It isn't even dramatic. It's just there. Like a room in a house you didn't know was empty until you walked past it and felt the temperature change. You keep going, you still do your errands, you still show up. But there's this soft misalignment. A routine has lost one of its familiar pieces, and your mind keeps reaching for it out of habit. Then it doesn't. And that's when the absence becomes real. Not as an event, as a quiet, irreversible fact. People imagine regret as something loud. Like you fall to your knees, like you scream into the sky, like a movie scene where everything finally breaks. But most regret doesn't do that. Most regret is a small, private feeling that moves in and takes up residence. It sits down like it belongs there, and you realize slowly that it does. It shows up while you're doing something else. You're standing in line at a pharmacy, staring at a row of gum and chapstick, and suddenly you think, I never said it. You don't even know what it is at first. It's just a pressure behind the ribs, a memory trying to surface. Then it becomes clear. I never told him I understood. I never apologized without defending myself. I never said thank you in a way that sounded like I meant it. I never asked her about the thing she kept hinting at. I never called back. And you can feel how small those moments were when they happened. That's the part that hurts. It wasn't hard, it wasn't expensive, it wasn't impossible. It was just postponed. Because it didn't feel urgent. Because the day was full. Because you were tired. Because you didn't want to be awkward. Because you assumed there would be time later to be sincere. And now there is. Not in the way you thought. There's no dramatic punishment, no cosmic lesson delivered in a neat package. Just the reality that some doors close without making a sound. You start remembering things you didn't know you remembered. The way they stood in the doorway while you talked, half listening. The way they said your name when they were trying to be gentle with you. The way they paused before leaving, like they wanted you to stop them. There are always pauses like that. You don't notice them while they're happening because you're busy being the person you are. Busy being right. Busy being productive. Busy protecting yourself. Busy staying comfortable. Comfort is expensive, but you only learn the price when it's too late to return it. And it isn't just about other people. That's the part nobody says out loud because it sounds selfish, and grief isn't supposed to be selfish. But it is. You grieve the person you might have been in the presence of someone who is now gone. You grieve the version of you who could have shown up better, more honestly, more awake. You start to see your own life as a series of unfinished conversations. Not only the ones with others, the ones with yourself. All the times you felt something true and quickly covered it with distraction. All the times you stood in your kitchen at night, knowing something about your life wasn't right, then opened the fridge like the answer would be inside. All the times you promised yourself you'd de-change, but only after you got through this week, this month, this season. You begin to understand that postponing isn't neutral. It isn't just waiting. It's choosing something else. Every time you said later, you were also saying not now. And not now becomes a habit. At first it looks harmless. You delay the hard conversation because you don't want tension. You delay the doctor's appointment because you don't want to know. You delay the creative thing because you don't want to be bad at it. You delay leaving the relationship because you don't want to be the villain. You delay telling the truth because you don't want the consequences. You delay the phone call because you don't have the energy to hold someone's sadness. You delay visiting because it's a long drive. You delay saying, I miss you, because it feels too vulnerable. You delay and delay and delay. And the strange thing is, you don't feel like you're choosing against life. You feel like you're choosing stability. You feel like you're being responsible. But then absence arrives, and it rearranges everything. Suddenly, all the things you thought mattered feel thin. The emails you answered, the meetings you sat through, the petty arguments you won. You can't even remember what some of them were about. That's what makes it so humiliating. You spent real hours, actual unrepeatable hours, being irritated about something you can't name anymore. And now, when you try to think of the last real conversation you had, your mind goes blank for a second. You remember fragments. Them asking if you're coming by. You saying you're busy. You meaning it. You remember the sound of your own voice, casual, certain, like time was a resource you could budget. And you remember their voice too. Not angry, not begging. Just accepting. That acceptance is brutal. Because it means they learned slowly what you didn't. That you were not going to show up. Not in the way they needed. Not in the way you told yourself you would someday. And you can't fix it now. Not with an apology. Not with a long message. Not with a sudden wave of clarity. The past doesn't take late payments. So what happens when you die with nothing settled? It isn't a courtroom. It isn't a dramatic montage of your life. It's more like leaving a house in the middle of a sentence. A sink full of dishes. An unmade bed. A half-written note. Not because you didn't care. Because you thought you finish later. And the people left behind, they don't just miss you. They inherit your unfinishedness. They find your passwords written on scraps of paper. They find drawers full of unopened mail. They find a closet with clothes still on hangers like you're coming back. They find your life in objects. And objects are terrible storytellers. A photo doesn't explain why you stopped calling. A ring doesn't explain why you never said what you meant. A notebook doesn't explain why you quit halfway through. But people try to make sense of it anyway. They have to. They hold your things and wonder what you were thinking. They replay old messages, searching for clues. They reconstruct you from fragments. Sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes they get it painfully right. And then there's the other kind of unsettled. Not the practical one. The internal one. The part where you realize, if you're honest, that you also have unfinished business with your own life. There's a particular regret that doesn't get talked about much. Not the regret of what you did. The regret of what you kept almost doing. Almost leaving. Almost starting. Almost telling the truth. Almost being brave. Almost is a very quiet graveyard. It's full of versions of you that never got to exist. And nobody mourns them properly because nobody saw them. Not even you, most of the time. You only feel them in strange moments. When you see someone your age doing the thing you kept saying you'd do, and your first emotion isn't admiration. It's a sting. It's that thought you try not to form. That could have been me. When you hear a song from years ago and you suddenly remember how you used to feel, back when you still believed you would become someone else. Back when you thought your life was still in its opening scene. When you walk past a restaurant you always meant to try with someone, and you realize the person isn't here anymore, and you never went. It's such a small thing, that restaurant. That's what makes it unbearable. Because if you can lose something that small without noticing, what else did you lose? You begin to see how your days were structured. Not by what mattered, by what was loudest. Notifications, deadlines, other people's needs, your own avoidance. It's easy to mistake noise for importance. Noise feels urgent. Meaning doesn't always. Meaning often arrives quietly, like someone standing at the edge of a room waiting to be acknowledged. You ignored it. Not because you're evil. Because you're human. Because humans are very good at living as if the most important things will always wait. And the truth is, sometimes they do, for a while. That's why the lie works. You can postpone the conversation and nothing explodes. You can avoid the truth and still get through the day. You can numb yourself and still function. You can live on autopilot and still be praised for being reliable. That's the cruel elegance of it. Life doesn't punish you immediately for being absent. It just collects interest. Then one day, you wake up and you realize you've been paying for a life you weren't fully living. And when absence enters, when someone is gone, or when you feel the outline of your own ending somewhere in the background, it doesn't feel like a dramatic shift. It feels like a sudden, private embarrassment. Like you've been caught treating everything sacred as if it was recyclable. You start thinking about the words you used too carelessly. I'm busy. I'll get to it. Let's do it soon. I didn't mean it like that. I thought you knew. I thought. That phrase is the softest confession. I thought there would be time. I thought they'd always be there. I thought the friendship would survive neglect. I thought love could live on leftovers. I thought my body would keep cooperating. I thought the feeling would come back. I thought I'd feel ready someday. You can build an entire life on I thought. It looks normal from the outside. Inside, it's just unfinished. And here's the part that people don't like to admit. Sometimes the reason nothing gets settled is not because you didn't have time. It's because settling things requires a kind of emotional exposure that you learn to avoid. Settling things means admitting you were wrong. It means saying, I need you. It means saying, I was scared. It means acknowledging that you hurt someone, even if you didn't intend to. It means letting your life be real, not just manageable. And real is messy. Real includes awkward silences and conversations that don't go the way you rehearsed. Real includes people not forgiving you right away. Real includes you realizing you stayed too long or left too soon. So instead, you keep it smooth. You keep it polite. You keep it functional. You keep your relationships running like appliances, useful, dependable, rarely examined. And then, when the quiet stop happens, you discover something that feels almost cruel. You can't settle things with someone who is no longer here to meet you in the middle. You can talk, sure, people do. They stand in empty rooms and speak into the air. They write letters and never send them. They visit places and whisper apologies like they're trying to reach across a distance that doesn't have a bridge. It's not pointless, but it isn't the same as a living conversation. It doesn't create new memories. It doesn't allow repair in real time. It's a monologue. And the mind is not a gentle audience. It replays everything you missed. Not the dramatic stuff. The ordinary misses. The time you didn't look up when they entered the room. The time you half listened because you were checking your phone. The time you gave advice when they just needed you to sit there. The time you made it about you. The time you thought you had to be strong and didn't let yourself be kind. You remember the last time you saw them and didn't know it was the last. That's a particular kind of pain, because there was no special lighting, no meaningful music, no final speech. It was just Tuesday. You said something like drive safe or text me when you get home, and you meant it. And then you went back to your life. That's what makes the last time so terrifying in retrospect. It doesn't announce itself. It hides inside ordinary moments. And then it's gone. The mind tries to bargain with it. If I had known, I would have. But you didn't know. Nobody knows. That's the part we all live with, without looking at it too directly. So we keep things unsettled, because settling feels like admitting that endings are real. We keep the apology in our throat, because saying it makes the relationship feel fragile. We keep the I love you casual, or we don't say it at all, because saying it properly makes it feel like something you could lose. We keep our lives half-lived because fully living would mean accepting the risk of losing it all. And still the loss comes, sometimes in the shape of someone else, sometimes in the shape of time itself. You look at your own life one day and realize you've been moving through it like a guest. Eating, sleeping, working, paying, scrolling. Existing, not quite arriving. And then you think about the things you haven't settled. The friend you stopped replying to because it felt like too much effort to explain your sadness. The sibling you resent for something that happened so long ago you can barely remember the details, but you can still feel the posture of it in your body. The parent you keep at a distance because closeness would require honesty, and honesty feels like it might crack something open. The partner you live beside, not with. The days you go through the motions, thinking this is just a phase, as if you're still warming up for your real life. You start to see how many of your relationships exist in a kind of limbo. Not broken, not healed. Just suspended. Like laundry you never fold. Always there, always unfinished, always slightly heavy in the background. And you wonder quietly, is this what my life is? A series of things I meant to complete. It's a strange thing to realize, but regret isn't only about what you didn't do for others. It's also about what you didn't do for yourself. The version of you who was going to be brave, what happened to them? The version of you who was going to write that book, or learn that language, or stop hiding behind jokes, where did they go? They didn't die in a dramatic way. They faded. They got replaced by a version of you that learned how to cope. Cope by staying busy. Cope by staying distracted. Cope by staying comfortable. And comfort becomes a kind of sleep. A soft sedation you pay for with your days. You don't even notice you're asleep until something wakes you. Sometimes it's grief. Sometimes it's just a moment. You're taking out the trash at night and the air is cold and your building is quiet, and you suddenly see your life from a distance. You see how small it is. Not small in value. Small in attention. How few moments you actually remember because you weren't fully there for them. How much of your life is just forgotten time. And then the thought arrives, plain and almost rude. If I died tomorrow, what would be unsettled? Not the big dramatic questions. The mundane ones. Who would have to call my landlord? Who knows the password to my laptop? What happens to the photos on my phone? What happens to the letters I never sent? What happens to the truth I never said out loud? And then the deeper question. What happens to the part of me that I kept postponing? Because there's something about dying with nothing settled that isn't just about paperwork and conversations. It's about identity. It's about leaving without ever fully showing up as yourself. People might remember you as responsible, reliable, kind maybe, hardworking, but do they know you? Did you let yourself be known? Or did you keep your real thoughts hidden behind politeness and productivity, and I'm fine? Because I'm fine is the most common lie on earth, and it kills things slowly. Not bodies. Lives. Real lives, present lives. It kills intimacy. It kills honesty. It kills the chance to be met. And you can go years like that. You can be surrounded and still unseen. You can be loved and still feel alone. You can live in a full house and still feel like you're disappearing. Then one day someone is gone and you realize, we weren't actually talking. We were exchanging updates. We were maintaining contact, not connection. And it's too late to change that history. So you sit with it. You sit with the fact that so much of life is lived in draft form. Draft apologies. Draft love. Draft courage. And there's a particular ache in knowing how easy it would have been to do some of it differently. Not all of it. Life is complicated. People are complicated. But some of it was simple. Some of it was just you not wanting to be uncomfortable. You didn't want to cry in front of them. You didn't want to ask for help. You didn't want to admit you were jealous, or lonely, or scared. You didn't want to be the person who needed something. So you stayed contained. You stayed fine. And now the cost of that containment becomes visible. Not as punishment, as absence. Absence is a mirror. It shows you what you were taking for granted. It shows you what you were ignoring. It shows you the shape of your own life without the comforting assumption that time will smooth everything out. And the more you look, the more you realize how much of your life is made of things you plan to settle someday. That word again, someday. Someday is a beautiful word. It sounds like mercy, but sometimes it's just delay with a nicer name. You start noticing it everywhere, in yourself, in others. People talk about visiting their parents when things calm down. They talk about writing when they have time. They talk about changing careers after they save enough. They talk about taking care of their health starting next month. They talk about healing once they get through this year. And you want to interrupt, but you don't because you know. You know how seductive it is to believe that life will eventually offer you a clean, quiet moment to become who you meant to be. But life doesn't tend to offer clean moments. Life offers messy ones. Life offers Tuesday afternoons. Life offers tired evenings. Life offers awkward conversations. Life offers imperfect chances. And if you wait for the perfect opening, you can wait until the end without ever beginning. That's what dying with nothing settled looks like from the inside. Not a dramatic failure. A long, gentle postponement. A life that kept saying, not yet. And then suddenly there is no yet left. No more later. No more soon. Just the settled finality of what remains undone. It's not even that you didn't love. Most people love. It's that you loved in a way that fit inside your schedule. In a way that didn't disturb your routines. In a way that didn't require you to face your own fear. You loved with the assumption that love had time. And time is the one thing love doesn't control. So the mind returns over and over to those small moments. Not because it wants to torture you, because it's trying to make sense of how a life can feel so normal and still end up so unfinished. You might find yourself remembering the way you used to end phone calls. All right, talk soon. Talk soon. You meant it. You really meant it. And that's what makes it so unbearable. Your good intentions are not enough to build a life. Good intentions don't settle things. They just make the unsettled feel justified. They let you sleep at night. Until you can't. And when you can't sleep, you start thinking about your own ending in a different way. Not as fear. As inventory. You begin counting the unfinished parts like someone walking through a house after a storm, checking what's still standing. The apology you owe. The truth you keep swallowing. The dream you keep shrinking. The resentment you keep feeding because it gives you an identity. The relationship you keep maintaining because leaving would mean facing emptiness. And you realize something simple and heavy. So much of what you call later is actually never. Not because you won't try. Because life doesn't always give you the chance. That's the part we don't like to say, because it makes everything feel fragile. But fragility isn't a mood. It's the architecture. You can live decades without noticing it, because the days keep arriving. Then one day they don't. Or someone else's don't. And suddenly the illusion of guaranteed time breaks like thin glass, quietly in your hand. The pieces aren't dramatic. They're just sharp. There's a moment after the shock has passed, if there even was shock, when what remains is not sadness. It's clarity. Not comforting clarity. Not the kind that wraps itself in hope. Just a sober view of how things actually are. Life doesn't always end with a statement. Sometimes it ends mid-sentence. Sometimes it ends after a routine. Sometimes it ends after an ordinary day when nothing felt different. And what's left behind isn't only grief. It's the unfinished. The unsettled things people carry like bags they never put down. The conversations they avoided. The tenderness they rationed. The truth they edited. And if you're honest, you can feel it in yourself too. You can feel the ways you keep your life slightly out of reach from your own hands, as if you don't want to touch it too directly. Because touching it would mean admitting what you already know. Time was never promised. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a frightening way. Just in a plain way. A quiet truth you can live your whole life without acknowledging, until the day it becomes unavoidable. Regret isn't loud. Regret is the sound of a phone that doesn't ring anymore. Regret is the empty space where a name used to appear. Regret is the memory of an ordinary goodbye that turned out to be final. And meaning, real meaning, isn't a grand conclusion you arrive at. It exists only while you're here to notice it. Only while you're present enough to feel the weight of a moment and not rush past it. Only while the door is still open. Because one day, without ceremony, it won't be. And the world will go on being ordinary. Coffee will still brew in other kitchens. Phones will still glow in other hands. People will still say, later, like it's a guarantee. And somewhere, quietly, another life will be left unfinished. Not with a crash. With a fading. With nothing settled. And a silence that doesn't ask for attention. It just stays.